Hello there, guys. Welcome to Major Gives a Damn. Right, we all love our country. We all want to serve our country in some way or the other. But of course, one of the most direct ways to serve the country would be to join the armed forces as a soldier. And of course, there are a lot of students who aspire to be officers in the armed forces. But does that mean anybody who desires to be an officer in the armed forces will become one? Absolutely not. Do you think is it because of the IQ of the candidate or their inability to study or learn? Absolutely not. Because we all know the legendary Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam sir was once rejected by the Air Force SSB. It was his dream to become an Air Force pilot. So you can clearly see it's not because of the IQ of the candidate or their ability to learn and study. The SSB is a lot more than that. It's about a lot of other qualities that you need to have. To be an officer, you need to be a complete package. Of course, it's a different thing altogether that Kalam sir went ahead and became the 11th President of India and became the Commander-in-Chief of the armed forces that rejected him back then. It shows two things. One, the rejection at the SSB doesn't mean much. You have a lot to accomplish in life even after that. And number two, this is by far the biggest swag the country has seen. I wonder why this swag is not spoken about more. Right, so I said, being an officer is all about having a lot of other qualities that are desirable. Having the right attitude, having the right mindset. We all know there are a lot of aspirants who want to be an officer in the armed forces, but not everybody will make it. A lot of the aspirants will have to go through the heartbreak. So here, what I'm trying to do is, we'll talk about few red flags. Such characters that the aspirant can evaluate on their own and decide whether to pursue this career in the armed forces or should they avoid the heartbreak and then go ahead and pursue some other career. But I cannot guarantee that these characters will definitely lead to a rejection at the SSB. But there are high chances that with these characters you might not make it at the SSB. I say this because a lot of characters can be changed with a lot of practice. But remember, these characters have been ingrained in a candidate over a matter of 18, 19 or 20 years. So it will take substantial amount of time and effort to overcome these characters. Right, so let's dive into these characters. So let's see what are these red flags that I'm talking about. Number one is the lack of discipline. By lack of discipline, I don't mean waking up at 5 in the morning and start running. It's a lot more than that. It's about the lack of consistency in one's behavior. For example, I'm a candidate and I've decided to be in the armed forces and I've started preparing for the same. And suddenly I come across a friend of mine who's planning for his MBA abroad. I suddenly start thinking, wow, that's a better option than the armed forces. So let me practice for that. Then I go and start preparing for the MBA. After a few months, I realize there's another friend of mine who's planning for engineering. And then I think, wow, this is a better option. I should go for that. So you see, there is no consistency in my behavior. This is a big red flag in your character. The second red flag is anxiety or inability to change. There are a lot of people who get anxious when things around them change. It's very difficult for them to get out of their comfort zone. They get anxious even for small things. Let's say your parents tell you to go and stay at your aunt's place for a week, which is outside your comfort zone. You don't like to go and stay at your aunt's place. You like the comfort of your home, the comfort of your room. Then you get anxious, you're worried. You don't even think that there might be a solution to it, you can work things out. No, the first thing that comes to your mind is panic. So this is a very big red flag. The fact that you don't realize that there can be a solution to the problem is a very big red flag. There are a lot of people, whenever they hear a thing, the first thing that comes to their mind is negative. For example, let's say you get into trouble in the college with your dean. Of course, there'll be a lot of ways that this problem can be solved, but your mind thinks in a very negative way. The first thing that comes to your mind is done. That's the end of my career in college. Now there'll be a lot of problems. So that's sort of a negative mind where you don't realize that you can solve problem in a lot of different ways. It's a big red flag. The next red flag is insubordination. By that, I mean the inability to follow orders or rules. There are a lot of people amongst us. Whenever they hear about rules, they think the rules are meant to be broken. When somebody tells them you are supposed to be following these rules, they get agitated. They say, no, I live by my own rules and I do whatever I want. I'm a free bird. So this attitude is a big red flag for the armed forces. The next red flag is a lack of integrity. There are a few people around us who over a period of time have lost their integrity. Maybe it's because of the environment or the surroundings that they live in, but still, the first thing that comes to their mind as a solution to any of the problem is to tell a lie and get out of it. Let's say you and your friends are in some sort of trouble in the college and you realize this is a grave problem. So the first thing that comes to your mind is to tell a lie and get out of it. So this is a very big red flag. This shows the lack of integrity and the lack of courage in that candidate. Another prominent red flag is a lack of confidence. We know a lot of people who find it scary to go in front of people, go onto a stage and talk because they are not comfortable with it. They find it really intimidating. Of course, it's a sort of phobia. There are people with acrophobia, which is the fear of height. There are people with claustrophobia, which is the fear of closed spaces. It is something similar to that. Even in spite of a lot of effort, a lot of practice, you are not able to overcome this fear of facing people, addressing people, and be confident in front of a gathering. This profession might not be for you. It's a big red flag. Another big red flag is the inability to follow time and routines. There are a lot of people who find it really cool to get to a function or a gathering 10 to 15 minutes late. They feel going to a place late gives them the kind of projection which is very cool. So if you think going to a place late is totally acceptable, it's not a big problem, then you might have to rethink your decision to join the armed forces. Another big red flag is your inability to make decisions. See, we see a lot of people, right, who don't give you a decision at all. Let's say your friends plan to go on a trip to Goa. They ask you, are you coming? You tell them, yes, I will let you know. And then you stall this decision. You won't come to a conclusion. You won't make a decision. You will stall this decision for many days. And on the day of the trip or one day prior, you will come up with some sort of excuse. My parents are not allowing me. I can't come. I don't have money. This is a very big red flag. The inability to give a decision timely. Another huge red flag is the inability to handle pressure. A lot of us, like I mentioned earlier, does not want to come out of their comfort zones. They feel warm and cocooned within their comfort zones. Once they are put under pressure, they crumble into pieces. And it takes them a lot of time to get back to their normal self after this incident. This is a very big red flag. If you think you can't handle pressure, it is overwhelming for you, you might have to rethink the decision of joining the armed forces. Another red flag is the inability to work in a team. There are a lot of people, right, who are selfish. They like themselves more than anybody else. And they think they're the only ones capable of doing things. They don't trust anybody else. They don't like to work in a team. This is a big red flag. If you're that sort of a person, please rethink your decision. So these are some of the important red flags that I feel will be a big roadblock in your decision to be an officer in the armed forces. But remember, all these traits can be overcome with the right amount of practice and dedication. But the question is, do you have that kind of time and patience? Because these traits have been ingrained in you over a period of 20 years or so. So it will take you an Herculean effort to overcome this. So remember this before you make a decision to join the armed forces as an officer.